Adam Peters spoke today. That's where we're going to start the show. I want to run through a bevy of the things he covered and just get his thoughts on a bunch of the topics we have been discussing on Grant and Danny over the last several weeks, starting with Marshon Lattimore, where he was non-committal on the future of Lattimore. But then again, what's he going to tell you? They're about to release him. This is what he had to say about the corner who Washington traded for, then doubled down on last offseason. It's been a swing and a miss for Peters and company. This was Peters today.
No, we haven't made a final decision there. There's a lot of things that go into that, and we'll still have a few more conversations, Ben. But until then, he's still on our team.
Lattimore played 9 games this season, tore his ACL, played in just 2 games in the regular season with Washington coming back from a hamstring injury last year, and then got torched in the playoffs. It has been a really unproductive, disappointing stay. They gave up picks. Look, you're going to swing and miss occasionally as an executive.
I had no problem with the move.
The best thing you can do when you make the mistake is not double, triple, quadruple down. Not keep on dumping money into this sunk cost. And so, just move along. Cheap to come in and play more football this year. But this is the easiest decision they're going to make this offseason. I know Peters did not commit to releasing him, but I will tell you right now, I will be shocked, and I would bet almost anything, that ultimately Lattimore is released. There's no guaranteed money beyond right now on this contract. They save almost $19 million in cap space by cutting him. This is the easiest decision they're going to make.
Yeah, this is a kindergartner could make this call. This is a simple one. Now, what they're worried about, maybe I'm just trying to spin through everybody's potential thought processes on this. Is maybe he finally gets right, goes somewhere else for on the cheap and plays good football.
Don't care.
Just beat me to it. I don't care. Nope. I've had enough. Not here. Too much savings. Again, there's no dead cap it. That's not hyperbole. There is 0. The number is 0. You cut him. They should have done it last year. I argued then at the time, but whatever. I get it. You want to see it through. You give up picks.
You save almost $20 million.
You save $18.5 million and go out and get whatever you want.
I got a bunch of tweets and people reaching out on social when Peters answered this question the way that he did, as if to say, there's no way he's going to triple down, right? And I would just say, no, do not worry about that. When you put your little head on your little pillow, you can go to sleep knowing that they are not going to further drive down this road. I, like you, endorsed the trade when they made it. I was wrong. When they doubled down this offseason, I like that a lot less. I probably would not have done that, but I understand why they did. And it's the same reason. I don't think it's a matter, Danny, of fearing that he's going to go somewhere else and be great, and then you look bad. I honestly think it's how much they gave up. You just want to go to the end of the earth to make sure. It's like you dated someone for 10 years, you got engaged, you got married, you had kids. Like, let's make sure we can't salvage this thing before we walk in our separate directions. They gave a lot up. As good as the Laremy Tunsil trade was for them, that is maybe not to the extreme on the antithesis, but close to as bad as the Lattimore trade has been for them. So let's just make sure we kick the body a little bit before we walk away, so to speak. And I think that's kind of what they're doing now. There's also no rush to do this in terms of pre or post June. You're going to want the money at the start of the league year. You still have a little under a month, a few weeks away. It's got So this is the Terry McLaurin situation of 1 year ago. He will play for this team one way or the other this season. The question is, if you want to sign him, and they do, and he wants to re-sign, and he does, how quickly can you get that done to avoid turmoil during and leading up to and after training camp? This is what Adam Peters had to say.
Yeah, I don't want to put a timeline on it, JP, but it is really important for us, and we've been having talks, and we've been having good and productive talks with Laremy and his team, and we're as motivated as ever to get that done, but I don't want to put a timeline on it. Obviously, I don't think either side wants to drag it on, but I don't think the league year is anything that's going to be a deadline of sorts.
So that was Peters today at the NFL Combine with reporters in Indianapolis. That sounds eerily similar to what he said about Terry McLaurin.
I was just going to say.
So you can be dismissive if you want to. This is an eye of the beholder thing, right? if you want to hear that and say, oh, this is exactly what he said about McLaurin, it means nothing, I guess you could go that route. I actually take him at his word here. Tunsil is their best football player, probably. If Jaden Daniels plays like he did again in 2024, then he's the guy. But right now, in terms of highest ranked at his position, closest to being an all-pro, Laremy Tunsil is the best player on this team. And he wants to be here, and all you got to do is pay him, and they have a lot of money. There's zero reason not to. So I have to assume that they are going to pay him. Remember, the issue they had with McLaurin was at the receiver position, you hit that wall at 30-31, and then you regress. That's not the case at tackle. There are great tackles in their mid to late 30s in this league occasionally. So there's just nothing that would lead me to believe that they're not going to be willing to pay Tunsil. If they don't, by the way, then we'll know that this is how they do business, and I won't like it very much.
No, I think that's the key here, is you've got different use cases. It's not apples to apples, but it is a player that's played well for you, that's coming into the same set of circumstances. Does this drag on? Are they concerned about, quote-unquote, winning the negotiation? Or is it just, if we have to pay a premium, we'll do so?
Which they won the negotiation.
They won it with McLaurin.
Like a 72-49 score in the first half of an NBA game.
Yeah.
I mean, they dominated that negotiation. But at what cost? They paid for it dearly pretty much all of last season, too. So congrats on saving money. But look at last season and how it played out.
Yeah, exactly.
Tunsil's 31. He's actually going to be 32 this summer during training camp. And the 5-time Pro Bowler still played at an elite level last year. Probably the biggest Pro Bowl and one of the biggest All-Pro snubs in the league. But, Danny, is there any thought to this? He gets injured a lot. He plays through the pain a la Trent Williams. But, man, was he banged up incessantly. He can never practice. He's one of these days that, Wednesdays are off, and Thursdays are limited, and Fridays he's back on the field.
First team all rest day.
He leads the league in rest days, which is fine because you go out there and you play great on Sundays. He didn't miss any games in 2024 or 2022, and then he missed 3 games in 23 and 25, which was last year with Washington. But
something you got to know, and it's also something that might get brought up when it comes to contract time. The agent won't care, obviously, but can you find a middle ground? Can you explain? We'd love to give you this much, but you missed 3 games, and then here's the percentage of plays you missed. So to be full premium, some of them, none of it's your fault exactly, but this is that kind of delicate thing in terms of finding that sweet spot for a contract potentially. I mean, to me, it's one of those, if you got one, you don't let him go. I don't know what Houston was doing. They should not have traded him to Washington. Thank goodness they did. Washington has been on the other side of this where you're in need of that franchise left tackle. If you have one in the building, he does not leave. You look at the free agent market, it is bereft of, in their prime, left tackles. There simply aren't any. You cannot upgrade that position. You can find a guy that's 42 that wants to play one more time. You can find backup Billy, who's been a swing tackle, to fill in for you at way too much of a price. The free agent market tells the story. If you have one, you just don't stop until you re-sign him.
Pay that man his money.
Mm-hmm.
This one doesn't need to get complicated. There are times where you got to fight, scratch, tooth, nail, claw, all that stuff. We are scratching, we're clawing, and it's a tooth and nail drag-out battle. We don't need to make this one of those. You have hit the lottery here. You made a trade for a bunch of picks to bring in a left tackle, and the trade worked out beautifully. In the same way that we were just talking about Lattimore and it went badly,
it's the opposite of that.
And you want to kind of exhaust it by keeping him around, you know what you want to do when a guy comes in that you gave up all the picks for? You want to keep him around too. This is the same deal here. So pay this guy. I think they will. A little bit later in the show, coming up next segment, I want to actually open up the phones to see if people feel like the Tunsil negotiation will go differently than the McLaurin negotiation. But we'll come back to that in a minute. We're going through the highlights of Adam Peters meeting with the media at the Combine today, talking about all the burning Commanders questions. Remember, Dan Quinn speaks in 45 minutes. So if any news breaks, we'll have it for you first here on 106.7 The Fan. AP was asked about Brandon Aiyuk. I was actually surprised by that because Aiyuk is still a 49er, so he's not actually allowed to answer any questions about him, which he brought up here. But I'm glad he was because he was still able to give some compelling insight into Aiyuk.
Brandon Aiyuk is a player on another team under contract, so I can't comment on that. Second chances, yeah. I think everybody on Earth deserves a second chance, and so with Kinlaw, I mean that was an interesting one. Kinlaw earned his second chance, and really, he earned every single bit of it, and so I wouldn't kind of call his a second chance, so to speak. I think because I had the familiarity with him and understanding the type of person and player and competitor he is, that helped factor into that decision, but I think he earned every single bit of that by the way he came back from his injuries and everything to be a really, really good player. So in terms of Brandon, love the person, but can't really comment on the player.
For context, he was actually asked a question that cited second chances and Javon Kinlaw.
Yeah, the follow-up was second chances in general, and the first person he thought of was Kinlaw, who had a bunch of injury-plagued seasons in 21, 22 in San Francisco. Finally, they gave up on him. He goes to the Jets and has kind of bounced around and came here and had, I guess you could say, a fairly impactful year. Not a huge stat level of impact, no sacks or not a ton of TFLs, but started and played a decent amount. And that's what Peters kind of cited and then sort of corrected himself as he went about what's not exactly a second chance, as if like that usually implies off-field impropriety, major mistake. This was just an injury play guy that's gone through it a little bit.
I was still gripped by his answer, though, when he talked about really liking the person of Brandon Aiyuk. Now, what is he going to say here? You're not going to slam the door, probably, and nor are you going to say, yeah, I can't really talk about him, but if he becomes available, we'll be very interested. But to say, when you have an opportunity to, when the entire discussion about him is he a bad apple? Could this guy fit in the locker room? Is this a guy that would fit in their culture? What does Adam Peters actually think about him as a dude? To say, I really like him as a person, that wasn't nothing to me. And we can, as we go forward here, try to parse up exactly what that means. But that's the part of the offseason we're at. It's a lot of vagaries in these comments where you're reading between the lines. I'm mostly, if we're going to play thing or not a thing, I think that answer was not a thing. But saying I liked the person when right now we're seeing him driving 200 past the stadium or whatever it was.
That's why that went off for me. So I would say thing, not major, but like, again, on a binary 0-1, I say 1. Because you went out of your way to say, hey, that sounds more forgiving. That sounds more open and embracing without actually saying. Because, again, he can't talk about the player and his status, et cetera. But he volunteered. I like the guy. He could have left it at, hey, he's a player on another team. I can't really comment.
You've also been prepped so much for this coming. Mm-hmm. I would say starting with the regular season. That could have been asked anytime he's talked this offseason. And you knew going into this press conference, this is an award-winning PR staff Sean DeBarbieri runs, they're going to tell him, hey, so here's one of the questions coming. They're going to ask you about Brandon Aiyuk. Let's have a good answer. What are we going to say? And see, everything is calculated in a sense with these major sticking point questions. So for him to say something about him as a person and be positive of his time with him, I think that was pretty compelling. Two other topics that he addressed off to the side, so there's no audio here. What you just heard was him talking to the media at the podium. Afterwards, the PR staff grabs all the local reporters who spent the money to go out to Indianapolis to give them another few minutes without all the random national people jumping in to ask about this linebacker class and stuff like that. And so he did acknowledge that they plan on Daron Payne playing at his $28 million number this year. They're not going to restructure that contract for Daron Payne. They're not going to release Daron Payne. According to the general manager, Adam Peters, he's going to play at $28 million, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But it tells you that it feels like this is the end of the road, that they like him enough on a bad defense that maybe Durante Jones likes him enough that he doesn't want to move on from him. But you're also not extending him, which is just as telling. If you wanted to keep him because you think he's one of the better D tackles in the league, you would think you would want a lower cap number, just extend him into the future. But they're not willing to do that either. So they're very much in no man's land with Payne, but it sounds like he will play at $28 million.
Yeah, and I guess that's one of those where you can afford to pay the premium to find out, right? In other words...
Do you view it as finding out?
Well, find out's the wrong phrase. I was trying to think of the right phrase. That's why it took me a second. In other words, you're in for $11 million if you cut Daron Payne. You save 17. You go get a player at 17, will he perform up to 28? Right? I don't think Daron Payne will either. But that $11 million tax that you're paying is part of it. So once you're in for that, you can be in for the whole thing, and you're keeping it short term with him, which means can I get some of that juice of short-term contract Daron Payne, which led to career years, right? If they love the player, it'd be an extension. You'd soften the cap hit. You'd add some years to it. They're not doing that. They're also not cutting him because, again, you're basically one full starter as an $11 million cap hit in the hole, and you'd have to replace him with somebody that's not going to be the same equivalent in their mind.
I would bet if the dead money was lesser, they would release him. You're not willing to take on $11 million dead. And as you said, while $28 million is a gargantuan cost, you have enough money. And if you're going to sign a premium D tackle on this market, it's probably in the 22 to 25 range anyway. So while we're saying he's overpaid, how far overpaid? Probably $5 to $7 million tops, maybe a little bit less, honestly. If Daron Payne was on the open market as a 28-year-old right now, he would be getting over $20 million, I would think, or close to it. So it's not a massive overpay, even if it feels that way. I wanted to free up that money. They're not willing to, and now it's a contract year. Here's one other thought I had on Daron Payne, who's going into season number 9. This is a little bit more baseball executive thinking, but I could see him as a trade chip if things go sideways early. So if you get off to a bad start, and now we're talking about Dan Quinn on a hot seat, and they're losing, they don't really have a lot of assets that you can go get draft picks with. But let's say Payne, through 6 weeks or something, has 3.5 or 4 sacks and is playing really good football. He could be a game wrecker for a contender that they could go bring him in a la the year when you traded Montez Sweat or Chase Young. Just something to think about. One other storyline, Zach Ertz wants to play again next year.
You believe that?
Which is admirable and incredible. You and I were in Minnesota when he tore and shredded his knee apart. He is 35. He does not turn 36 until right before Thanksgiving, but it'll be in season here. And he wants to keep playing football. So first and foremost, just from a human standpoint, this dude has the lives of a cat.
Like, first of all, what a person.
He just keeps on coming, man. He does not stop. 50 catches, 504 yards last year. I would not be in the Zach Ertz business in 2026 off of a serious injury. And if I am, I'm just telling him, hey, we'll bring you in, but you're down the depth chart. And when you're ready, we'll get you out there, but it's not an every down role. There's got to be a place where they'd pay him to come in to play a little bit more at 36 years old. But for what it's worth, Peters said that they have been in contact with him, that they are keeping the door open, that they are not closing the door on Zach Ertz. So I had just kind of said that chapter is done. And Peters said the opposite today. Ertz wants to play. That was the report from NFL Network. And the Commanders have been in touch with him and are keeping the door open.
It's not what I would do or where I would go, but you understand, it seems, the value they place on his leadership, right? And how good of a dude he is. And he also went on to speak highly of the tight ends that they have under contract, who haven't really done a ton. John Bates has been good as a blocker. They've paid him, but you haven't seen much from Sinnott. You haven't seen much from Yankoff, just, glimpses here and there. But maybe that is the solution. Now, Ertz is sort of a glorified mentor, sort of coach. I mean, he's not going to be ready to play and be Zach Ertz in week 1, even if he's on target to come back in week 1. How can you expect somebody at that age with that injury history to just hit the ground running and be himself? He could be somebody. He could be on your roster. It's just not what I would do or where I would go. It's time to get younger and faster and more explosive, and he's none of those things right now. But again, you could see the value they place on that guy.
Before a devastating knee injury in December.
Yeah.
And again, we're hearing he should be ready around week 1. But I would guess this is a pup into at least week 5, week 6, something like that. But before that injury in December, while Zach Ertz had plenty of things that he did well, it's a catch-and-fall, anti-explosive guy that does a lot of the safe stuff underneath. Go get a weapon. Please get younger. Please get faster. Please add explosiveness. Please help your quarterback out.